Hey there, listeners. Welcome back to Podcast Demastered. I'm Wade, and I'm here with Chelsea as always. This week, we have a pretty special episode for you. This is an episode that has been long in the making for Chelsea and
Yes.
I. Together, we undertook a pretty big challenge. I think invested a lot of time into this. But we have both reread. Well, I reread and Chelsea, I guess, finished.
Yes.
The Inheritance Cycle books written by Christopher Paolini. For those of y'all who are like, I don't know what that is, it's the Eragon books. If you ever read those like growing up and stuff. We've been working on this for quite a while, I think, right? I can't even remember when we started.
Yeah, I feel like we planned this a while back and then we like really got going and just started like plowing through them. Now, this time we both decided to do the audiobooks, which I thought was really the best option for the situation.
I think it was a really good option for this. Like the recordings for these were like well done.
Yeah.
It got to the point because there is so much to listen to. I think there's about 100 hours to listen to.
At least, yeah.
It was one of those things where like I looked forward to every time I got to get in the car for my drive to work or put my headphones in and like work on something while I can listen to this book. And usually I'm a big, like, no, I need to read. I love to read, and I was just not used to audiobooks at all when we started, but now I'm there for it. I'm ready for all the audiobooks.
Yeah, I feel like for me too, like audiobooks, I really haven't gotten into them except for like the last couple of years, but it's such another great way to consume content. And yeah, like you said, this worked out really well for the Inheritance Cycle. And I think we both talked about that we even listened to this while we played Dreamlight Valley at times too, because we're just playing a chill game and just
absolutely
has something really interesting to listen to. And yeah, you mentioned that, yeah, I had always thought like I had read most of the series when I was younger, but I realized I had only ever read the first two books. And I was like, oh, okay, so clearly I missed out on a lot.
Missed out on all the good stuff.
Yeah. I think, too, it was just, I struggled reading these books. I think I remember just because, like, not that they're not interesting, but they're really dense. And a lot of times, because, like, not that, like, there's a problem with what Christopher Paolini does, but, like, he spent so much time, like, he really invested himself and, like, consumed himself in his own world, creating these different languages, like, really focusing on all these minute details. And some of that just really can really bog you down and slow you down reading. At least for me, because at some point I was like, what am I doing? What am I doing? Like, am I reading John Steinbeck with Grapes of Wrath in that, like, turtle chapter? I'm like, I can't handle this. But going on for like chapters.
These big fantasy books, like sometimes they're just, they're a lot. They're not just take everything at face value and just move on with your life. It's a lot of remembering and understanding and, because it's a whole other world or set of languages and things, terms and stuff like that you have. The book assumes that you know these things. So it's best just to get them down before you move on. Because else you'll be like, wait, what was that? That term, what did that mean?
Yeah. Excuse me? Yeah. Yeah, so true. But, I mean, I think listeners, if you are probably around our age and you probably grew up with these books, I feel like, these books were a really big deal. And I think one of the reasons that these books were also such a big deal was because of how young the author was when he wrote the first one. Like, it was quite impressive. I think he started it when he was like 16, 17 writing it. And then he released it like a year and a half or 2 years later.
Yeah, he's like 18 or 19 when that book actually released for the first time. Which, just think about what you were doing at the age of 16. Were you writing a big fantasy novel? Probably not.
I wish. Yeah.
I know, right? And he continued to write these books for about 10 years.
Yeah.
And just, that's an undertaking.
Yeah, and so many levels. And also just because I remember, like, his parents, I think it was like a self-published book, like the first Eragon, or like the first book titled Eragon. And then it was quickly picked up by a publishing company who then was really invested in it. And then, yeah, he really churned these out. I think it's like every 3 years he released another one. And then it was kind of like done with that. And we've seen a couple, well, at least one like kind of collection of short stories has popped up within the last couple years. The Tales from Alagasia came out in 2018. And then we are actually getting a new book later this year.
Heck yeah. I'm so pumped.
Yeah. What is it, like November?
Uh-huh. Yeah, actually, I'm pretty sure it comes out, like, just moments away from my wedding. So, I have something to do on my honeymoon. That's not just my honeymoon, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, that should be fun to read. And I think it's cool, too, because, like, I feel like this, like, world and stuff is just, like, so fresh on our minds just because we have gone back through it all. Or me for, like, mostly the first time and everything. And then just surprise a new book we get to check out later this year. But I mean, okay, the first book came out in 2002, so this series has been around for a while, and because it's been around for a while, we are going to be covering spoilers in this episode. So
we're not holding back. If you haven't finished the series, maybe go do that first, or read, find a summary somewhere so you can keep up, because we might be moving through it quite a bit. No apologies here.
Not at all. I mean, I feel like, let's see, what other background can we give besides like the most simplistic like summary of the entire series?
Well, like, so the books takes place in a land called Alagasia. It's your typical high fantasy stuff. You got your humans, your dwarves, and your elves. Nothing new there. Whatever you know about those species is probably true. In this too, he doesn't really shake up the mythos on those creatures, not really. But he also introduces dragons, and dragons have a pact between the humans and the elves where they can, like newly hatched dragons, can kind of like perform like a soul bond kind of with a human or an elf, depending, and then together they become dragon riders. And then those dragon riders kind of like keep the peace in the world between the races, and, they help. That's their whole thing. They're not just like police. They're there to help the whole world. But then a time comes where one of the dragon riders, his dragon dies. He kind of goes crazy. He starts this big war, this big like kind of civil war within the dragon riders. Kills pretty much all of them. And then takes the entire land of Alagasia as his kingdom, and then he becomes an evil king. Yep. And then 100 years later, that's where the story starts.
Which starts with our main character, who is actually named Eragon.
Eragon. Not Aragorn, that's a different character.
Yes.
Different person.
Different series. Yeah. But yes, Eragon, our main character, who is at the time of the first book, like 15?
Sounds right.
16, yeah, something like
that. He's typical protagonist age.
Yeah. Yep. And just doing his own thing, just very simple life, like farm
living
boy.
Out in the sticks.
Yep. And of course we also don't know who his parents are. He doesn't know who his parents are, and he's living with his uncle. Yep.
And his cousin Roran.
Oh, Roran, yes.
And so his life is very basic. He doesn't even know how to read, this poor boy. He knows his numbers.
But he knows how to hunt. Yeah.
And he knows how to hunt. He is the family hunter.
Yes.
In fact, he goes on like week-long excursions into the mountains in order to bring back food for this family. They have like a big farm, but he goes out to hunt while his uncle and his cousin deal with the farm. In one of his trips out to the mountain, he finds a stone, we'll call it.
A pretty stone.
A pretty stone.
Might be worth something. Yeah.
Yeah, and he takes it, and this mountain is known for like people don't go to the mountain like ever because weird things happen. There's always monsters and beasts and stuff, but Eragon's like, it's fine. I'll deal with it. It's fine. So he comes back with the stone, and the few people that like learn about the stone are like deathly afraid of it because they're like, you don't know where it came from. You found it in this mountain. What are you doing with it? You are stupid.
You are bringing trouble to our town. Yeah.
And lo and behold, he brings trouble to their town.
Yep.
And that's like a good plot synopsis to this entire series.
Yeah. He brings trouble wherever he goes.
He does. He is trouble. That's what he is.
Yes.
But he...
Well, isn't that... Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, well, we haven't even introduced that character, but I'm like, that's what Saphira jokes about throughout the whole entire series, is every time I leave you alone, trouble finds you.
And Eragon's always just like, well, you're always here too. And she's just like, no.
It's not me. I am perfect. I don't know what you're talking about.
I can leave, and I'm fine when I'm gone. But you, you always get yourself into trouble, and I always have to save you.
You tiny little human, you. Yes.
You have enemies? Why not just eat them? You humans, I don't understand you.
Yeah. Why talk all the time? Just, yeah. Oh, sassy Saphira.
Oh, sassy Saphira is best Saphira.
Yes. Well, yes. So that stone that Eragon found, surprise, a dragon egg.
Indeed.
And then when he touches, was it actually when he touches Saphira? Was when he touches the egg? Then like the magical bond is formed where he gets.
I think when he touches, I think it's when he touched the egg, because because Saphira, like Saphira knew that Eragon was there, and it's I kind of love this aspect that the dragon eggs, they don't hatch for anybody, and they'll stay in their egg indefinitely until they find the person that they know they're supposed to be with. So they choose when to hatch, and as long as they're in their egg, they're fine, you know. But Saphira feels Eragon and hatches. Crazy hijinks ensue as he tries to raise this little baby dragon without anybody finding out that he has a dragon.
And with very little knowledge to begin with about what to even do with dragons. How do you even care for them? And then...
in the, you know, like they know that dragons are things. Like, this is not this huge revelation. Maybe that, like, there are still dragons that exist, I suppose. But when a dragon comes out of the egg, he's not exactly, like, shocked that dragons exist. Like, this is not news. It's just that nobody expected there to be any more dragons because the King Galbatorix has killed them all.
And nobody expects one, especially in their little tiny area of their country. Carvajal area where nothing ever comes. Yeah,
so far away from like the main kingdom area that like the army never visits. They're really just left on their own.
Yep.
Luckily for Eragon.
Well,
for now.
For some time. Yeah.
So he's raising the dragon over the course of, you know, several months. He's raising the dragon. Life is good. And then Saphira starts to talk with him. Like in his head, he finds that they share thoughts, which is just a core part of being a dragon rider. You're bonded with your dragon and your minds are connected, which was something I always loved. And really this connects to like the whole like magic system in Allegasia. Like I love how it works anyway. But we don't have to touch on that for now. But you know, it's a lot easier to like raise a living being when you can communicate with them.
Yeah.
So
well, it's also so interesting too with being like that they share thoughts and everything, because it's also just not like all words, and he's almost like teaching her how to speak his language as well, but also like through like images and stuff. And it's also funny too. Well, it's not really funny, but like Saphira will only know what Eragon knows, and as they learn more, both of them learn more, then they get to add more because yeah.
I mean, think how smart you would be if there were two people learning for the same brain, basically. Like that's cool. That's crazy.
Wild.
But yeah, the fact that they don't just exchange words, they can send each other mental images, feelings, you know, like, or if one of them is feeling a particularly strong emotion, that tends to bleed over into the other one, much to the annoyance of the other one.
Yes. Yes.
Those always leads to some good scenes there.
For sure. But I mean, I feel like it would take hours to talk about the entirety of the story, but basically
that's kind of where it starts.
Yes. And then it's all just basically overarching, just learning how to be a dragon rider, learning magic, meeting new people, different races, and taking down the king.
His responsibilities for being a dragon rider, what that means for him and the people around him.
Mm-hmm.
It's a huge like coming of age story, but like I feel like it goes well beyond that too. It's not just as simple as that. It's like it's a whole thing. Eragon is given a prophecy halfway through the book, and that prophecy sticks with him the entire series of the books.
Yes. And I think that's something that's really interesting to mention, and also like what was done pretty well in the series is that Christopher like does a good job of like bringing back callbacks to things that has happened. Like he actually remembers what he wrote and like piecing things together and being like, remember this conversation? I was like, okay, so we actually are going back to this conversation, or back to, yes, everything coming together with a prophecy, or certain characters you meet that do actually show up later on. There's that like one woman with like her daughter or whatever that appears later on again. And I was like, okay, good, we were going to see them again. We don't get all the answers about everybody, but there are certain things that are brought up.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
There's no retcons. There's no like messy explanations. I felt it's just really cool how like it's a whole cohesive story. It's all right there. You don't have to go elsewhere to figure this out and then like, oh well, that makes more sense now. Like, nope, it's all right there in front of you. He hands it all to you.
Yeah. And also another thing to mention that's kind of interesting about the series is that I feel like, because for most, like a good portion, I feel like, of the first book is mainly through like Eragon's perspective, or like what you're seeing, what he's doing. But then you start like, I think a little bit later on in that book, and then especially in the later books, like you get to see what's going on with a lot of other people.
Yes, absolutely.
That are involved, and really gain like more insight into their lives, from Roran, Eragon's cousin, to
there's a few spots where you're with Saphira. Just a few spots.
And like quite a few other characters.
Naswada at the end, in the last book there. Those are some really good chapters too.
But yeah, no, it's not like, even though it's mainly like Eragon's story and everything, like we do get glimpses into plenty of other characters' lives, and I feel like a lot of the characters are like really like fully developed. Like we really, like you can like read along and see like Eragon grow as a person, but we follow so many other people as well who grow into their own roles.
Absolutely. And it's a pretty big cast. It's not like it's not a Game of Thrones level cast where like there's 1.5 million people to keep track of, and then like everybody, and 3/4 of them die anyway. It's not like that. It's there's a bunch of characters. They all have different roles, and they come up a lot. Like you never have to like, if you meet a person, you're going to meet them again several more times. Like they keep the cast pretty close together. They're never like scattered really. They're all there more or less.
Yeah, a lot of them just become such like a tight-knit group, like almost like kind of a found family in some aspects too, because we're just like, they're so intertwined in each other's lives. And yeah, it's like, oh, what character should we talk about next?
Should we let's just go down the list and kind of introduce everybody and their role within the world. I mean, we've talked about Eragon and Saphira already. So I don't think there's a whole lot more to go in about them. They just continue to grow and get stronger and rely on each other a lot for all the little things and the big things. And Eragon learns to worry about other people too, because as he grows more powerful, he's afforded that luxury of being able to take care of other people.
Yeah, that really becomes his like real purpose in life, that he realizes, that he needs to take on all these responsibilities.
And then, next, you want to talk about Arya?
Yes, let's talk about Arya. And Arya is a character that I feel like becomes so much more fleshed out as you progress through the series. You learn a lot more about her and stuff, and I feel like you learn so much about her in the later books. I feel like at the beginning, I feel like she's just there, except she's just like the elf that Eragon is like, she's hot, I'm in love with her.
And
we have to be together.
And that's one of those things. Like Arya is beginning from page. She is important from the very first page. She is the elf who, she lives outside of the Elfin Kingdom, so she hasn't been home in like 50 years, something like that. She works with like the rebel group, the Varden. She goes between the elves and the Varden and humans. And she carries Saphira's egg from group to group and town to town, and allow the children of those places to try, well, to touch the egg and see if they bond with Saphira, because they're trying to get Saphira to hatch, so they can raise a rider to hopefully overthrow the king. And at the very beginning of the first book, Arya gets attacked by Galbatorix's men, and she is forced to send Saphira's egg out, which is, she teleports it away, which is how Eragon gets his hands on it. Mm-hmm. But, and there's some spoilers here. During this initial fight at the very, very beginning, Arya loses her lover, ? I guess you'd call him.
Yeah, that's fair.
Which is not explained at first, but explains why Arya is the way she is for, like, the first half of this story. Like, the first, at least whole 2 books. Arya she's all business. Mm-hmm. She has a job to do. She's going to do it. She doesn't mind emotions. Like, she's not like that emotionalist person where she just shuns everybody, but it's, there's a limit because I have a job to do. And for a while, Eragon cannot get over that.
Yeah.
That poor boy. But, he's a normal 15-year-old boy. It is what it is. And she's very gentle with him, too. She doesn't ever just push him away.
Many times to let
she
him
tries
down easily.
so many times. And he's just, like, not having it. Because he just doesn't understand, like, other people that much better. He's not being aggressive. He doesn't push himself on her, but, like, he just won't let it down.
Yeah. He's like, I don't care. I love you.
And
Please
she's just
love me
like,
back and be with me.
And she's like, I'm 70 and you're like 15. You're a baby.
Like,
and we'll just,
so
we'll never be there. And he's like, come on, baby. Age ain't nothing but a thing. But she sometimes she uses her words. Sometimes she's just like, I am clearly a distraction to your, like, main responsibility, so I will distance myself from you. And as the series goes on, they have some nicer moments. She's always there for him if he needs her. But it's not until you get into the third book where Eragon gets to know more about her backstory, because they go to the Elfin Kingdom. But it's even after that, though, where Arya finally kind of lets her walls down with him. And she says, like, I am this way because I had a person and I lost that person because of all of these crazy things that are going on, and I haven't been able to, like, deal with that yet. So you becoming involved with me it's just not going to happen, because then it would be unhealthy for everybody. And I think that's when, like, it really changes for Eragon. He starts to understand her a lot more.
Yeah, like, and then they definitely grow a lot closer in that sense because of having that understanding. But it makes sense. Like, it's still a struggle for him because he's still like, I'm still in love with you, but I understand I need to grow up from this and understand where you're coming from with things. And by learning more about Arya and stuff, it's also interesting too, because, like, with the whole premises, like the Varden with obviously, like, the next writer and stuff, like, everybody wants to take down Galbatorix and, like, end his reign. And, like, for Arya, with her transporting Saphira's egg back and forth, and, like, basically her whole life has been to, like, her job was that she wants to help overthrow Galbatorix and, like, get rid of him, and her mission is to do what she can. So, like, there's stuff towards, like, later on in the series where it's kind of like, well, what are you going to do after? And she's like, I've literally never thought of that. Like, this has been my whole entire life.
Yeah, like, it's
like fighting.
That question is not important.
Yeah.
Until
like,
we get to that point. Yeah. Like, ask me afterwards. Maybe I'll tell you, because maybe I'll know.
Yeah.
Although I love her ending, though. For the most part, I love where she's at the ending. But we can. Well, let's not talk about that quite yet.
Okay.
Because her ending gives away, like, everything. Everything.
Everything. Oh.
So we have our main elf.
Yes.
And then we have our main dwarf. We have Ulrich, who takes Eragon in. I know, he's a cool guy, isn't he? He takes Eragon in the moment that Eragon gets to the Varden. They spend the whole book trying to, like, meet up with the rebel army called the Varden, who are being housed by the Dwarven Kingdom, so they can stay hidden from Galbatorix, mostly. And the second Eragon gets there, Ulrich is like, he's mine. We have him. He's ours.
Yeah.
And Ulrich is the son of the Dwarven king, Hrothgar. And after some conversations and some things that Eragon does for them, Hrothgar adopts Eragon into his clan as his son, which makes him and Ulrich foster brothers. And I love that because Eragon had a brother, sort of, his cousin Roran. But there was always a very fine line between the two of them, especially after events that happened. About, like, you're not really my brother, you're just my cousin, you know? But Ulrich was ready to take Eragon in, and he takes care of Eragon, and Eragon takes care of Ulrich. And him being, like, he's essentially a dwarf, the way that dwarves see it. But that's kind of Eragon's thing. He's there to unite all the races, just based off of him being himself. And that goes a huge long way into that part of it.
Yeah. And I just love his character so much too, because like with Eragon and Saphira, like they do have that special bond. Like, you know, they're like companions, like more than friends type thing. Like they have that like unique relationship. But then for him to have friends or like, you know, that like other relationships, that like brotherly relationship outside of that is wonderful to see with like Ulrich, and that how they grow so close together and how they confide in each other and they help each other deal with what's going on in their lives, and how they're not just companions in that aspect, but like they both fight together. Like, like they're more than just like, you know, oh, simplistically there, and help each other through the times, because like Eragon has to help Ulrich deal with lots of stuff going on with the dwarves and stuff that happens on later in the books, and being there to support him. But then when Ulrich takes on all those responsibilities, that he still believes in that they are foster brothers and that he is there for them.
He he insists that no matter what higher responsibilities Eragon or himself end up with, they are brothers and they are there to support each other. That's just and it even seems like that's Ulrich's main concern at that. Like it's like I'm not going to betray you for my people, and I'm not going to betray my people for you. Like it's everything. Which, you know, in their relationship continues to expand, even into Ulrich becoming the king of the dwarves himself. So like, and you think, well, that really puts Ulrich in a tough spot. No, not really. Just because of how it all happens, but
yeah. Well, and I think also when he becomes like the Dwarven King, like he even experiences that like everybody treats him differently, but the only person who doesn't treat him differently is his foster brother Eragon. And so they're able to like, because both of them are growing, like with Eragon also being a dragon raider, people also treat him differently as well. But those closer friends and those relationships he started out with, like those people didn't really change around him, so he's still able to keep that like real relationship going, that real bond.
That was really Eragon's relationship with Ulrich is one of the like it's one of the best relationships in the series. Because, like, with Saphira and Eragon, it's like, well, yeah, they've been, like, bonded body and soul
it's
together.
Expected, yeah.
Like, that's going to work out just fine. But, like, Ulrich's relationship with Eragon is very natural. There's nothing that forced them together. There's nothing that... There wasn't, like, honor-bound obligations that, like, made these things happen. It was all choice. Choice and choice and choice that from both of them that led into how they were together. So, yeah.
Yes. Well... Shall we move on to Roran?
Yeah.
And Katrina.
Yeah.
Roran.
Now, and I think Eragon and Roran's relationship also, like, it was fine, and then it got really complicated. To nobody's fault. But, like, wow. That was something.
Yeah. It's wild. Like, he turned out to be, like, a really... interesting character, because I feel like when you start the series you're just like, oh, Eragon has a cousin, his name's Roran, okay, and he kind of like goes off to do his own thing to like kind of grow up and learn a trade. But then you're like, wait, we get to stick with him throughout the whole entire series, like we get to follow him along. And I mean, yeah, like they kind of have that initial relationship at the beginning, they're just cousins, they live together, kind of almost like brotherly like. But after Roran's dad gets murdered because the king had sent men looking for Eragon and Saphira, who they thought was still in an egg, and yeah, he gets very mad at Eragon and hates him because it's like, your fault, you brought this on the family, and then you ran away. Like, you're a coward.
Well, yeah, because how it all happened, like the soldiers came to Palancar Valley to look for the egg, and things really ramp up from there. They find the butcher Sloane, and Sloane is like, "Oh, Eragon, this kid, he has that egg. I saw it. Like, go get him. Please don't mess with us." And they just kind of, the soldiers start this attack on the town. They go to Eragon's family's farm, burn it down, killing Eragon's uncle. And Eragon is forced to flee with Saphira and Brahm, who is like the town's like storyteller, old man storyteller. More on him later.
Yes.
So to Roran, and then Roran came back after the fact and just found out like,
yeah, this isn't modern day. Didn't just get a text or a call.
Yeah,
like...
he came back later and it's like, my dad is dead. Our family home is destroyed, and everybody, and it's Eragon's fault, and he's not even here to be mad at because he ran away. And all the villagers are cursing him too, just because family.
Yeah, and then being like, you're going to bring more upon, which actually does affect the rest of the town.
And immediately, and of course, because the king knows now that Eragon had Saphira, he sends more soldiers to there, and they continue to attack. They bring the creatures known as the Razak with them, who are just like demented, evil, nasty creatures. Yeah. And they're like demanding Roran, not Eragon, because they know Eragon's not there anymore. They want Roran so that they can use Roran as bait, as a bartering chip to get to Eragon and Saphira. And the village is kind of like, nah, like we don't really want to give Roran up because that's not really going to put an end to our problems. And Roran's just kind of sitting in the middle of that, like,
it's like, well,
I don't know what to do.
Really, it's like, I don't really want to be taken, but I don't know. And then
we're all dead regardless, because they're not going to let these people live after, even if I go quietly. So they start a small resistance against the army and end up having to just full scale flee, pack up the village and leave.
And that's just such a big, like, huge turning point for Roran as a character. Like, it's like a switch goes off in him where, like, during this time he just like, it's like, I have to do something about this, and like, this is like kind of my fault because like this stuff's happening to the village and they want to protect me. Like, I need to do something. So he like basically takes charge and like is able to just like corral and like rally everybody together. And he's just like, I brought this upon myself. This is my responsibility. I'm going to fight the hardest I can. And I'm going to make sure we all survive through all this. And yeah, that's like his journey of starting off as being this huge leader.
and not really a willing leader too. Like, he just... Yeah. Because everybody starts to look for him, like, to lead. And he's like, somebody, what? Like, I'm not that person. Hi, I'm like 15 years old. But, he shows himself in battle and gets lucky a fair few times, and
understatement.
And the Razak come and they run off with his girl, the butcher's daughter, which is really why he left to begin with. He wanted to go after the Razak to get her back, and that kind of sets up like the goal of his initial journey, to get the people out of the valley first off so they're not slaughtered, but also to hunt down the Razak to get Katrina back. But he becomes a whole different character throughout. He doesn't just build himself up. He completely transforms into somebody new.
Yeah, like, it's basically because of like the situation he's in. He's like, well, I have to adapt basically, and this is what I have to do to survive. Because like his love for Katrina, like, this is like the relationship, I feel like, in the whole series, that is like the ultimate like romantic relationship. This is like, everybody's like believes of like top tier, the greatest like romance ever, and it's what, like, this is what Roran strives for. That's all he thinks about is her.
That's what he's there. Yeah. He's doing this to save her.
And giving her the best life possible. That's his whole thing. But he's just thrown into battle after battle, and it's just, wow, he just turns into...
I don't think this poor man, like, doesn't sleep from the minute he, like, gets back to Carvajal for the first time. And he is constantly wounded and he never gets to sleep and everybody just sucks around him and
Yeah.
he's like, the poor man is like counting the number of people he's killed because it bothers him so badly. Like, it's a whole thing.
Yeah.
And then Aragon's just off on a nice little high fantasy adventure with his new dragon bestie.
Yeah. and there Roran's on the
just
ground
sucking
really
it up.
fighting those. Yeah. Those brutal battles. But man, yeah. And then he just turns into quite like the leader in the sense of just, he always comes up with these really crazy but so like intelligent like ways of like defeating their enemies. And like, and then he's just like, it has to work.
It's just gonna have to be.
Yeah, from like what, like the rafts that go down like into the that one like
He's got
village.
he gets sent to a siege. Like, you got 2 days to like end this siege, or like don't bother coming back, basically. And it's like, well, I've only got one plan, so
We're gonna do it.
you can either do this with me or we're all gonna die. So
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
and
then,
then it
how many
works,
times?
and everything is fine.
Yep. And his well, speaking of like that particular battle, because that's the one where like they're all camped outside that like that huge town, and that army comes. They're like, and he's like, everybody hide, put at the
Just hide,
table.
it's
I'm gonna have a
fine."
drink. Yeah.
I'm gonna act like a crazy person here.
Yeah.
playing
Crazy cocky
playing-
person.
playing games and drinking my mead.
Yeah.
And this whole
Oh my
army
gosh.
comes into the camp, and they're just like, why isn't anybody here? This is like an army camp. And he's just like, I don't know what you're talking about, but you want a drink?
Yeah. He's just like, sup, what are you doing here?
Like,
Just
get out.
do my own thing. Yeah. And it works.
Like, oh yeah, they were here, and then they were like, this is stupid, we're leaving. And I was like, I don't want to do that, so I just stayed.
Yeah.
And they're all like, well, that sounds pretty cool. All right, peace
Cool.
out.
Talk to you later. Yep.
And then
Fight
he
you
goes and
later.
murders
No.
them all. It's fine.
Yep. Oh man. But at least like with Rowan's character though, like through all his struggles, like he does get his happy ending though in this. Like,
Oh, he makes out like a bandit.
man, and he doesn't get like super permanently like maimed or in any way. Like,
Nope.
I mean, it's because like there's magic in this world, so he gets healed a lot. But
He gets saved several times by his cousins, like
Yeah.
magical wards and stuff. But like, he takes his hits. He gets hurt a lot, like a lot.
But yes, no, he does get to actually rescue Katrina, and they get to live together happily. They actually do get to get married. Somehow haven't been able to squeeze the
They have
wedding.
a baby,
Yes, and a baby.
and that they really do squeeze in that wedding too.
Yeah,
Like an hour after a huge, like, dramatic battle.
yeah. And
Look,
it's wedding
everybody's
time,
reasonably
people.
traumatized. Okay, we'll have
Yeah.
a wedding now. It's fine.
Yes. And then
Roran's
go
just
back
like,
to
not
battle.
on the day of my wedding.
Yeah, not today.
Eragon's just got to ruin everything.
Yeah, but Roran does end up like him and Eragon end up like eventually having like that heart to heart, and like eventually be able to.
They make peace. And they make peace pretty quickly, too, because, like, Roran never even punches Eragon in his dumb face, you know?
Yeah, which
There's never even any of that.
would have been appropriate.
And I think it's just, it would have been appropriate. Again, not that any of that was really Eragon's fault.
no.
But, there's a lot of feelings, a lot of very valid feelings.
Yeah.
And I think, and Roran doesn't learn that Eragon is a dragon rider for a good, fair bit. He thinks he's just run away from the village. But then he starts to hear tell of a new rider and dragon, and then later on, like, the names get used, and he's just like, no,
Like,
that's stupid.
excuse me. Yeah.
But then when they finally meet back, he's like, oh, that's crazy.
Yeah. And he's like,
So he understands that there's responsibilities there, but like,
yeah. Well, should we talk about our queen?
let's go. I'll let you take the lead on our queen,
On our queen.
on our literal and also figurative queen,
Yes.
but also literal queen.
Naswada. Like,
Naswada.
when we first meet her, because we meet her towards the end-ish, I guess, of the first book, and she's just she's the daughter of the leader of the Varden. And you almost kind of...
That's all.
Yeah, you're like, I guess maybe she's kind of pretty, don't know what she does. Like, that's kind of like Eragon, I think, thinks of her, like, who is this chick? Like,
she seems like she's pretty chill. Like, she knows what she's doing.
Mm-hmm.
She's just, like, talking with and hanging out with Saphira. Like, no big deal.
Mm-hmm. But then...
Like, your dragon's so pretty.
Yeah. Oh, hi, I'm just here. So you're just like, oh boy, wonder what they're trying to set up with that. But then you have the huge battle at the end of the first book and everything, and then like she actually fights in that battle. Like, you're like, oh,
she getting it.
She's just not like just the daughter of the leader of the Varden. Like, she can fight too. She can handle her own, and she's also pretty young too. Like, is she like maybe a couple years older than Eragon? I can't remember exactly.
Yeah, she's like Roran's age or something. She's still a teenager, but like an older teenager.
Yeah. So, like, that happens and stuff. And then, like, throughout her story, like, her father gets murdered. And so, which, of course, is obviously very upsetting for her and everything. But then it turns to, well, the Varden is, like, the resistance against the king. Like, who is going to lead them? And, of course, then there's lots of politics in this, lots of manipulation about, oh, there's a council who's like, who can we manipulate to take on this role? And, oh, what about his daughter? She doesn't do much, clearly. Is what they think. They're like, she's not smart enough.
She's a good, like, figurehead.
Yeah. They're like,
she's a good face.
Yeah. They're like, it'll be fine. And Eragon's like, because there's a whole thing, too, where, like, he swears his loyalty to her. Because he's like, I trust you. You're going to make the right decisions. Or, we can support each other the best we can. But, everybody really underestimated her. She becomes a force to be reckoned with. She really grows up quickly. Like, it's like, yes, I'm taking my job seriously. Like, I will be.
She's handling a whole army. The politics between races, like, she's got this.
Yeah,
she has this. She
makes all the tough calls, like, but she's just so smart about so many of those things, and thinks so carefully about everything. But trying to like mix in, like trying to deal with all the politics, but dealing like what is actually best for everyone in this situation and what will actually help the Varden to succeed. It's just. And it's something that I'm glad didn't happen, but it's something that she thinks about because with the Varden, they end up later on staying with the king.
King Oren?
Yeah. Staying with him and stuff. And like she's like, well,
Oren? Oh crud. I forgot.
Oren?
Continue.
Yeah, I think it's Oren.
That sounds right.
Yeah. Who is a human and who is like his kingdom is like one of them that has like continually resisted Galbatorix's reign or like outside of Galbatorix's area that's under his control. And at one point she's like, we're not really agreeing on things, and she thinks about at one point like, well, what if we get married? Would that be better to like try to join forces? And I'm like, oh no, girl, oh no.
Oh snap.
Yeah.
She's like, I mean, he's not like ugly. Yeah. He's not, and like, he's not uninteresting.
Yeah. Like he's kind of nerdy with his experiments and stuff. I guess it's kind of cute, but
like, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's kind of cute.
Yeah. And then,
but she's like, I think he's gonna try to wear the pants, and I just can't have that.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. You're like, no. He doesn't know what he's doing. I can't have that. And I'm like, smart move for so many reasons. Thank God,
because poor Nasuada, like she has these crazy responsibilities. Like, oh my God, but she wants to also like get married and have kids and live like the normal woman's life someday. Which respect. Like, the world is ending around her, and, she never, ever, ever, ever lets that come before her everything else in her life. But those are things that she wants, too. And they explore that a little bit, and she's just kind of like, well, not this girl.
Yeah, she's
not
like...
for me.
She's like, I wish, but the people need me to do these things. We have to do this in order to...
Yep.
But...
Yep.
Yeah. She's just and she's also one of the main characters that we do actually get to see a lot what's going on with her. Like, we get to follow her along in later books, and like all the things she deals with. I mean, she really becomes a force to be reckoned with in the sense like that. I think like the kind of like tribe or something that like her family was from, like her father was from, like comes at one point, and they're like, oh well, you're the leader of the Varden, but like, who says we have to listen?
We're the
to
leader
you?
of you,
yeah.
So
like deal with it. And then they have this crazy challenge, and she's like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. I have no choice, and I have to survive. Where the trial of the long knives? Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
And
they basically just like stand there in their underclothes and just kind of like take turns cutting their arms.
Uh-huh.
And then basically just whoever
lasts
is
longest.
conscious,
Yeah.
whoever's still standing the longest, they win whatever it is that they're working at. And she wins, much to the chagrin of the rest of the tribe. But she wins, and she becomes not only the leader of the Varden, but the leader of her people, too. Mm-hmm. Which is not such a big deal for her. She's like, good, like, give me your money.
Yeah. But it's also just
we
like...
need your money.
Yeah.
Please give me your money.
Yeah. Yes.
And they're just like, crud, okay,
yeah.
it's fine.
But it just gives her so much more respect, too, of just being like...
that goes a long ways, too, because that story gets told, and she has those terrible scars up and down her arm. Mm-hmm. But she's just like... And you know, with magic, they could, like, heal the scars. They could have saved her from all the pain that the cuts were causing. But by using magic to do any of that, even after that challenge was over, she would be forfeiting the challenge. Mm-hmm. And she continued to live with the scars and everything just to prove that, no, I know what I'm doing. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And she's also put in so many difficult situations. Like, we didn't really...
Constantly.
Yeah. Like, especially, like, when the Urgles approach her, which the Urgles is another race. And that's actually, like, they were under control under Galbatorix, but under, like, the Shade or whatever. And they're, like, the group that killed her father.
Amongst a lot of other people.
Yes.
They're very, like, bloodthirsty, war-driven people. Like, they'll go ravage human villages just, like, so they are allowed to get married within, like, their species and stuff. And she gets that unfortunate responsibility of deciding to ally themselves with the Urgles, which makes her a very not popular person for a while. But then she uses her pieces to help with that. She sends Roran, you know, who is very, very highly respected. She sends him off with the Urgles. She sends Eragon off with the Urgles, and they hate the Urgles a lot because the Urgles are who ultimately have killed Eragon's uncle and Roran's dad. Mm-hmm. On top of the other atrocities that they've done as a people. But they form relationships with the Urgles, too. Because the Urgles also know that, you know, all the other species in Alagasia, they're trying to form this better world of unity and peace and stuff. And if they don't try to change as a species, like their culture and stuff, they're only going to become extinct, basically. Because they will have to all be put down. And what a real story that is. That's deep. That's some stuff right there.
Yeah, for real. And with like the Urgles, they explained too, like they were like forced to do Galbatorix's bidding. Like they were under his control. So like they also come to be like, we want to join forces with you as well because we're revenge. Mm-hmm. But like, well, we will also respect you too. Like, but you know, it's your decision to make. But yeah, no. Way Naswada is able to just like bring all these races together, but it's not a freaking easy thing to do. And she gets presented with many of those other challenges, too, of other races that come together as well to be like, we want to join forces, but you have to do this and this.
And how many times does she say, like, what else would you have me do then?
Yeah.
That poor girl.
Oh, my gosh.
And everybody's just like, nothing.
Yep.
She's like, then get off my back.
Mm-hmm.
In a polite way.
Yes. As polite as she wants to be, but behind the scenes, she just,
But she also kind of wins in the end, too, so.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Becomes an actual queen.
Yeah, she becomes the queen of the land at the end.
Yep.
And through a vote. Not even because she wanted to be. Through a vote.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Which, thank goodness, she was the one that became queen. But also, like...
And that's why she's our queen.
Yep. But even right before that, like, she dealt with a lot of crap, too, because she was kidnapped.
Oh, my gosh, yeah.
Under, like, in Galbatorix's castle, and just...
The whole last book, she gets kidnapped and...
Tortured beyond
Tortured. Belief. Body and mind both. It's a whole thing. You get lots of chapters where she's going through that. And I feel so bad for her because, like, she goes through all of this stuff. And then, like, once she's freed, like, you never get back inside of her head. And it's just, like, every time Eragon sees her, she's just, like, over it. Mm-hmm. Like, she continues to lead and, like, does her job, but, like, she is just over it.
Wow. Yeah. think this may be a good point for us to stop and take a break,
Yeah.
kind of ending our episode on a high note, talking about our queen, Naswada. We have plenty more to discuss of the Inherited Cycle series. Thanks so much for listening to this part 1 of the conversation. We will be releasing part 2 next week in our in-between weeks, so make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss out. As always, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at PodDemastered. We're also on YouTube as well. And you can always send us an email if you have any questions, comments, anything you want us to cover in the future. You can email us at demasteredpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode, and we hope you tune into part 2 next week.